All right, welcome to our Airbnb horror story.
Chronicles.
Yeah, the Chronicles. So this is a property that we actually didn't want. It was like an hour and a half away from us. They found us on the internet. And long story short, we gave the seller an ultimatum because it was a beautiful property. We were like, hey, look, yeah, it's a lot of work, 20 grand off of what we had it on contract or owner's financing. I wanted them to take the owner's financing. She took the 20 grand off. They really wanted out. So I'm like, all right, babe, I guess we're buying a lake house. And so we ended up buying it, doing this like $75,000 remodel, beautiful, put it on the market. And
lake view. You go out in the backyard, it's the lake.
Yeah,
gorgeous house.
In a very secluded,
prestigious neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah, and then full sunset dock, boat house and boat lift and storage, just absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. So we put it on the market knowing that it was probably gonna take a little while to sell. Right. Which it did. And actually, we didn't really get any traction at the time. So we're like, hey.
Like with any investment, when it sits for a while, you try to look for other exit strategies. So that's kind of what we did. Because
it's prestigious location and a lot of our friends were just killing it with Airbnb, that was what we decided to do. It was like, hey, this is a cool location. This is like a great vacation spot. Let's test out this whole Airbnb thing.
Yep.
So our very first Airbnb became our Airbnb from hell.
Yeah, it really was. And but anyway, we decided to move forward with it. I went in. I manage our Airbnb, so I was able to set that house up in a week. Luckily, we bought the staging furniture from our stager.
Because we were trying to beat Memorial Day.
Yeah. And I remember our first guest, actually, all the furniture wasn't even there. There wasn't even a refrigerator. And he just got a heck of a deal.
Because we didn't know about the instant booking on Airbnb.
Instant booking.
Like, oh man, like someone booked.
Yeah, I know. And we really wanted to get that superhost status. It was a learning curve. This whole situation was a complete learning curve. Like how to use Airbnb. We just dove headfirst in. And I remember before asking Chris, I said, hey, are you sure we can Airbnb this place? And I remember looking at the deed, and I had him looking at the deed restrictions just to verify, because I said, I don't want to do all this because I'm such a rule follower. So I just want to make sure that we can do this. And
so
I looked it up, and
I didn't see anything that restricted it.
Yeah,
and
they didn't even have an active HOA either. It was just the deed restrictions that we were given at closing. Yeah,
it was basically developer managed, and that was big. There was no HOA. Deed restrictions didn't forbid it. So it was all good to me.
Right.
So we put it on Airbnb. She's managing this thing, and like in a very short time, we had like over $8,000 in bookings.
Just for that summer, yeah.
Yeah, it was like 2.5 months, and on top of that, the first month and a half, like we had priced that thing ridiculously lower than what we should have.
Right.
Just
learning how to.
For a 3,000 square foot luxury house, fully stocked, with a boat house and ramp and all that stuff.
It should have been like 150 or something, but I think it was like 75 some nights. It was ridiculous. Don't do it. Don't do that.
Well, we didn't know. And
your high price also screens your guests. The higher the price.
Which maybe that would have screened the guest that kind of was the first domino to fall.
That was the reason why. Because at one point, some guests that stayed there, it was like a frat house. I'm not even kidding you. We had a Ring doorbell camera, that's all. And there were about 13 college students who stayed. Oh. So that was kind of a red flag. And then what really got the developers' attention was there's an empty lot next door to us, which is the developer's land, and some of the kids from different guests, were just playing soccer. And so Chris got a call.
Well, they called the realtor, so we had to just...
Because we had it listed still. We still had this listed. We had every intention on selling this property. We were just trying to make money, those high interest rates for short-term loans.
So the realtor calls me and said, hey, look, like the developer called and he's like cussing me out saying that renters aren't allowed and they better get out of there immediately. And they were on his vacant lot. And this is a vacant lot. Was mowed like once every other month and trees, and otherwise there was nothing there.
Right.
I'm like, okay. So I ended up pulling the call, and he was a little overboard. And so I call him, he didn't answer. So I shoot him an email just saying, hey, sorry, like they shouldn't have been over there. We'll make sure that never happens again. And don't worry, they're not long-term rentals. They're renters. They'll be gone tomorrow. And that was it. So he promptly replied back, clarifying what he was really trying to tell me is, no short-term renters or guests or anything of the kind are allowed. They're strictly prohibited in the deed restrictions, and I need to review them. And then he sent me a copy.
Remove them. You need to remove them.
Well, I need to get rid of the tenants and then review the restrictions. So, and then he sends me a copy of the restrictions, and it was the same copy I already looked at. And so I replied back just saying, hey, totally understand. Yeah, they're going to be gone tomorrow, and we don't have any long-term tenants. I kind of restate the position, and he basically makes it even clearer. He goes, I hope I've been clear on this, and he restates that no, you better not have any short-term tenants there at all.
So anyway, I know that rattled you where you wanted to fight it, but with me, I'm like, wait, I want to make sure we're in the right here. So the rule follower that I am, I remember hearing other stories about homeowners battling the HOA because of Airbnb. So I actually looked up online to see if there were any court cases or if it went to court. And I actually found one, and it was in Texas. It was Tar versus Timberwood. So I get all that, I kind of read through it, and I'm like, hey, and they ruled in favor of the homeowner. So I, showed that to Chris, and, I let Chris do the work of emailing.
Yeah, that's when I reached out to Patrick Sutton, and because the case, even though that wasn't with an HOA, other than that, it was basically almost identical to what we were going through. Mm-hmm. So I reach out to him, and he's just like, okay, well, why don't you just send him the last couple of paragraphs of the summary and, see how they respond to that. So I wait, and they eventually send us a formal letter from, no. So I send that to the developer. I send him the last couple of paragraphs of the Tar versus Timberwood summary.
No, we didn't hear from him.
But no, he replied very promptly, saying your response will be forwarded to counsel for disposition.
Right.
Basically, you're saying, we're going to sue you.
Uh-huh.
And then a couple weeks later, we get a formal letter from the attorney. It was basically a cease and desist letter telling us to stop, and what we're doing is forbidden. And so we're like, I send that over to the attorney, and then that's when we have a real conversation about what our options are with the attorney. And it basically boiled down to, we can wait and be sued, or we can sue first, or we can just stop altogether. And none of them were good options, because if we sued and went regardless, if we went the entire distance through a lawsuit, it was going to cost us about $100,000. Mm-hmm. The advantages of suing first was we potentially could get our attorney's fees back, which is what Tar did. He got his attorney's fees back when he won. But in Texas, if you are sued, if you're the defendant, even if you win, you can't recoup your attorney's fees. So we're in that dilemma, and then of course if we just stop altogether, we'd have to cancel bookings, and then
lose my superhost status, and then we didn't want to do that.
It's $3,000 a month just holding this place, and it never made sense to hold unless we could cash flow it from rentals.
Right.
Otherwise, we have to sell it, and if we put it on the market, we just didn't know how long it would take to sell. Because really the only one buying this type of home it's a second home for a doctor or an attorney or someone, or it's a retirement home.
Right.
Yeah, well, we ended up, I think, canceling one Airbnb.
Right.
And
we didn't hear from the guy after we sent that, and once he said, I'm going to send it to my lawyers or whatever. I think it took about 30 days, maybe 2 months. We didn't actually hear from him. So we're like, hey, maybe we got off the hook. No. But what we found out he was doing was he gathered all of the neighbors, the same neighbors who, when we moved in, shook our hands, were so nice to our face. And then it just kind of went downhill after that. But he got them to sign something to just basically amend the deed restrictions to then state no short-term rentals were allowed.
Yeah, nothing less than 90 days.
Right.
So which just kills any type of short-term rental.
Right.
And it was very specifically stated that. And that's when we realized, like, we're on these email chains and they're sending, like, things get weird.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting on the email chains. We didn't know who all these other people were on the email. We later found out they were our neighbors. And then, of course, the attorney.
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting pictures.
Yes, my guests are texting me that the neighbors are taking pictures of them. And, I mean, whenever we go out, we notice them. Because, I mean, I have a huge family. So we've been going out there like every weekend we could get because it's an awesome lake house. So, and we noticed that, you know, the neighbors behind us were taking pictures. I swear he had like a cork board in his office or something because he was a retired guy. I don't know if he had nothing better to do. And he was documenting all of the license plates or something. He had a great bird's eye view of all of our license plates. So we were getting pictures taken. One of the guests he was fishing and his line got stuck and he had to step into the neighbor's yard to unhook that line. And the neighbors came running out, taking a picture. Another time, I mean, it was just plain harassment. And a lot of the times, I mean, we stopped Airbnb-ing this property in August. So it was from August 2019 to April 2020 when we ultimately sold it, when we were still getting harassed by these neighbors and
from us
pictures,
and
our friends, because we were letting our friends, if we couldn't Airbnb it.
Yeah, one of them, he was fishing. He was like, they were driving their jet skis like really close to the dock, just totally like staring them down. And then even I was staying there once with my friends and
at the campfire,
y'all. It was like me. We were just drinking beer with buddies. And then you see them by the door, their little silhouette with their binoculars.
It was ridiculous. So ultimately, it came down to like, do we want to deal with this anymore? You know,
I was ready to fight. I really was.
Yeah.
I know.
I was not. I really wanted to crawl in a hole. But so we basically decided to relist it that spring of 2020. So I think it was February of 2020. We relisted it and ultimately got an offer in April.
Well, so we listed in February, got the offer in March, and we closed in April. So it actually happened really fast. We weren't expecting it. It was a total blessing from God.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now it's at this point, it was like, we know we're going to sell this thing and let's just enjoy it. Last time we're letting our close friends go out there and then boom, we get a lawsuit.
Yeah. I mean, every weekend we just like, go over there. All of our friends, nobody was paying us anything. I mean, just for the cleaning fees and stuff like that. But everybody was out there.
Yeah. So
just enjoying themselves.
I get a petition. I've got, I don't know, 30 days to respond or whatever. So I call the developer. I'm like, hey, so I got the petition. We're not renting it out. I'm not really sure what's going on. And then he's like, well, I'm not there, but all the neighbors are saying that there's multiple vehicles there and that it looks like you're renting. I'm like, yeah, our friends are coming over and we can do that. They're coming over. They're not tenants. And we're going to continue to do that until we sell. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, I'll send that to me in an email and I'll have the attorneys work on something.
Yeah. And the listing was still showing up. Like, even though we hid the listing, they could still find the listing. And you can probably still find the listing to this day. I don't really know how to delete that. We've tried so many times. We've just hid it and turned it off.
Yeah. So
they kept saying that we were renting it because they saw the listing. But
ultimately they ended up sending like the settlement statement. It basically said, hey, you're never going to Airbnb it again. You're going to remove any type of advertisements for any type of short-term rental. And then on top of that, you're going to let your buyer know that they can't. You're going to give them a copy of the amended deed restrictions and serve them, let them know about this situation. That's basically what he was doing. It was a huge middle finger.
It was.
We waited until the last moment to sign that petition because we wanted to make sure the sale was going to go through.
Right.
And protect our rights. Like, if we had to fight, we want to make sure we still could.
Right, exactly. So ultimately it came down. I mean, that was honestly a blessing getting that offer from that buyer because I sure as heck did not want to go through and fight this. And it really came down to, like, is it worth your time? Is it worth the energy? Because this was a huge headache for us. It was stressful on me. I was managing the Airbnb and dealing with it, all of that. And then, whenever our friends would go, I was still dealing with the headache of the neighbors. And yeah, we could have kept it for ourselves, but do we really want to live in a neighborhood like that with those neighbors? No. So long story short, do we want to, pay the $100,000 in legal fees or walk away with 70 grand in profit if we sell it? And, ultimately the 70 grand looked mighty shiny to us. And that's what we took. And, we have another lake house over there. We can buy another lake house just like that other one down the road. So if you ever choose, I guess our main point of all this is just sharing this because there's not many case studies out there. So we really wanted to kind of share our experience and really line out all of our options and what they were. And it just came down to it. It was just not worth our time and energy. And so sometimes those things you just need to bite the bullet and just walk away. And we walked away ahead. We didn't have to slash the price to sell it fast. We were just very lucky and we were able to walk away with a great profit, which was our intention all along when we first bought this property. So, it was a headache. We wanted to keep it for ourselves and still Airbnb it, but that just wasn't the case for this property. That guy was not going to let up, the developer.
Straight up a-hole. All right. Well, hope you enjoyed this story and the interview and
learn from it.
Learn from it and find some Airbnbs in the community that will appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thanks.